So this is the start of session 46. Vernacht, wenn der Oilem is sich zugeneigt, zugeneigt gekäuf, ge, gekommen, zugeneigt gekommen, in Beis Midrash, haben alle abgegeben dem Eurech Shalom Aleichem. Well, be in the nightfall when the crowd gathered in the Beis Midrash, in the synagogue. Everybody gave the guest a shalom aleichem, a welcome. How do you do? Mi hat ihm gefragt, von wann kommt, und hat geantwortet. They asked him where he came from, and he answered, Itzt komm ich von Eretz Yisrael, aber amol hab ich gewohnt da in Pilitz. Now I'm coming from Eretz Yisrael, from the land of Israel, but I did live here. I lived here in Pilitz. Wie heißt ihr? Wie heißt ihr? What is your name? Yankov. Mir hat mich gerufen Yankov Melamed oder Yankov dem Stummel Saras. My name was Yankov. They called me Yankov the teacher, or Yankov, he who belonged to the husband of the mute Sarah. Die junge Leid und die Fremde haben gar nicht gewusst. Aber etliche alte, eingesessene Balibatzim haben gedenkt. The young people and those who were new to this place didn't know anything about him. But there were some established Balabatim, how would you say that? Householders who did remember him. In Beis Midrash is geboren Arash. There was a noise, a tumult arose in the synagogue. Der Mann von dem Weibel, was hat gegeben Jakobs Eufele zu säugen, die erste Portug, hat sich euch gefunden in Beis Midrash. But by coincidence, the man, the husband of the woman who nursed Yaakov's baby in the first few days, also happened to be at that time in the synagogue. Hat sich angehabt beim Kopf und sich genommen schocklen. He grabbed himself, his head, and he began to shake. Is gelaufen anzugen dem Weib. He ran to tell his wife. Sie ist rein in Beis Midrash, zwischen die Mannsleit, mit der Schal auf den Kopf. She came to the synagogue with a shawl on her head und sich vergangen mit der Gewein, wie es mir kommt einreißen verschlafen. She came to the synagogue with this shawl on her head, and vergangen. Now this word appears again a few lines down, like swept away with a cry that when you come to a sick person, vergangen.
Yes, she burst into tears.
She burst into tears. She had a very emotional response to this. Sie hat geschrien, Teure Mensch, ich hab getracht wegen euch jeden Tag. She cried out, Dear person, I have thought of you every day. Was macht das Kind? How is the child doing? Unbelievable. 20 years has passed. Was macht das Kind? How is that child doing? Das Kind ist a Rosh Yeshiva in Jerusalem, a Tate von drei Kinderlech. This little child is now the head of a yeshiva in Jerusalem, and he's a father of three children. As ich hab das erlebt, is der Gott. If I have lived to hear this, this is proof that there is a God. Und die Jidne ist sich vergangen, Odham, mit Yormelech gewesen. She again burst out into a sobbing cry. Der Gabbai hat kaum eingestellt dem Eulim bis noch Mincha. The Gabbai of the shul was barely able to sort of quiet the group, the crowd, until after Mincha, the evening prayer. Aber Mincha, the afternoon prayer. Aber wie nur is ausgestanden, die stille Shmoine Esrei is wieder geworden a Tummel. But as soon as they finished the silent benedictions, again a tumult broke out. Yena, it's fine, the machine is. Yeah. No. Jener was haben gedenkt, Jakob in seinen Gewehen knapp in Zoll, aber a Sach haben gehört von ihm und von sein Stummweib. Those who remembered Yaakov were few. There were few people, only a few people there who remembered Yaakov, but a lot of them had heard about him and his mute wife. Die Meise, wie hat sich herausgerissen von die Dragoners und ist gekommen inmitten der Nacht, abnehmen sein Kind. The story, the drama of how he broke away from the soldiers and came in the middle of the night to take his child, hat man gehört afilu in the Shtetlach herum, had even been told in the Shtetlach around Pilitz. It was a story that was told in the whole area. In der Zeit, wenn die Shabtai Zwinikels haben gehabt die Dea in Pilitz, in the time, during the period when the Shabtai Tzvi group had the upper hand in Pilitz, hat man sich der Mund on Jakobin und in der Stumme Sache. In the time of Shabtai Tzvi, and when they had this hold over the area in Pilitz, Yaakov and his wife and his mute wife were remembered in the town. Machmas Delight haben gehalten vom Gewura und geteinet, als Yaakov muss zunehmen beim Esavin die Schwert. Why did Yaakov have a hold over what did he represent here? Because the people, the Shabtai Tzvi group, held respected bravery, and they claimed that Yaakov, this is Yaakov in the Tanakh, must take Esav's sword, oder gar sich beheften mit ihm und mit Yashmelin, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, azoi as alle zera Yishmelin, is that how you say it? Yishmelin?
Yeah.
Azoi as Yishmelin, azoi as alle zera Avraham sollen sein ein Uma, hat man genommen reden wegen jenem Jakovin und sein Stummweib wie wegen unserer von Ketz. So what was the basis of their relationship with this Yaakov, and who was the husband of mute Sarah? They had the belief that Yaakov should be like Esav and all of and join with Esav and Ishmael, so that all the children of Abraham would be like one nation, and there would be one nation. And so they began to talk about him, that is to say, Yaakov the Melamed and his wife, as they were an omen of the Messiah, that this was a sign of the coming of the Messiah, all in keeping with the Shabtai Tzvi, and Yaakov was part of that. Yaakov the Melamed. Um, hmm. Das Bergel, wo Sarah is gelegen, ist noch demult nicht gehad geworden, in ganzen eingeplascht. At that time, the little hillock where Sarah had been buried had not yet been completely destroyed. Das Brettel hat noch dort gesteckt wie Voil. Der Nomen is schon gewesen ausgemerkt. The little stick that had been placed there was still there, although the name had already been erased. Die Weibel und die Töchter von der Schabzeit Zwinikis, was seinen gegangen auf Kever Avos, the wives and the daughters of the Shabtai Tzvi group that went to, I guess, to the, what is Kever Avos? They went to the Kever, to the cemetery of the fathers. This
the graves of the forefathers.
The graves of the forefathers haben abgetreten bei dem Kever auf jener Seite Zäum und dort gesorgt als viele oder gelost machen an Erech Malerachamim. So the women who were related, who were part of the Shabtai Tzvi group, would go to the Kever. Jener Zeit Zäum. I always thought Zäum meant bridal. Jener Zeit Zäum. And there they said prayers, or they said El Malei Rachamim. The Shabtai Tzvinikim.
Yeah. Zäum is a fence. So she was buried on the other side of the fence.
Of jener Zeitzäum. Exactly. Okay, very good. Thank you. Of jener Zeit. I thought it meant bridal. Okay, anyway. On the other side of the fence, they went there to,
the word is actually usually written Tzom. Sade Aleph Kamatz Mem.
That's why. Okay. Anyway, thank you. That's they went to the other side. The Shabtai Tzvinikis haben afilu gehat zugezeugen auf Seelza dem Poritz. The Shabtai Tzvi group had already brought to their side the Poritz. Dem Jenekin was. Now, what is a Jenekin? Was hat gewonnen dem Prozess gegen Pilitskin und bei ihm zugenommen das Vermögen. So they had brought to their side was this Jenekin. I don't know who that is. That's a person, or of the person
the same Poritz.
Yeah, who took away the property that belonged to Pelitz, the Adam. Nachdem,
and it was through the means of a process of a court case.
Of a court
He
case in which
won
he
the court case, and
took away his property.
yeah,
Took away the property. Nachdem Bijazai Svi hat angenommen dem Koran und jeden über der ganze Welt haben gelegt in Cherem rein dem falschen Mashiach und seine Maminim. After that, when Shabtai Tzvi adopted the Quran, and over the whole world, the Jews put a cherem, a well, a cherem, a uh, they how would you a cherem? How do you translate that?
yeah.
Anyway, a cherem, yeah, a Rhine. They put a wall around, or they distance
They
themselves.
excommunicated him.
They excommunicated, that's it, excommunicated the false Messiah and his followers. Hat der Gabai von der neue Chevra Kadisha in Pilitz geheißen ausgleichen mit der Erdesbergel. So at that point, when the Shabtai Tzvi people were now Shabtai Tzvi, they excommunicated them. The new Chevra Kadisha in Pilitz had straightened out, had leveled the earth on this little hillock, Vudi Sarah is gelegen, where Sarah had been buried. Dazu hat man später gemusst zunehmen a Stück Platz zum Beisäulem und man hat der Sarahs Kever so gut wie abgewischt. Later, and this was last week we talked about this, they were forced to take on a new piece of land for this cemetery, and Sarah's grave was virtually wiped out. It's as die verborgene Shabtai Tzvinikis haben gehört, als Jakob hat sich umgekehrt und der Zu von Eretz Israel haben sie sich turned zu him. Now that the hidden followers of Shabtai Tzvi heard that Yaakov had returned and in addition, der Tzu, and especially he was from Eretz Yisrael, they tried to come close to him. They haben ihm abgegeben a breiten Shalom Aleichem. They gave him a warm welcome. Einer von sie hat ihm gleich verbeten, soll einstehen bei ihm in Haus. One of them even invited him immediately, straight away, that he should come and stay in his house as his guest. Aber Yaakov hat nicht gewollt gehen zu keinem. Yaakov didn't want to go to anybody's house. Hat gesagt, als wird nächtigen in Hegdish. He said that he was going to spend the night in the charity house, in the Hegdish. Ben Emet hat der Mond der Nomen Shabtai Tzvi hat Yaakov aufgetun. When somebody mentioned the name of Shabtai Tzvi, he cried out, Yimach Shmo v'zachu, und hat ausgespiegen. He said, may his name be blotted out, and he spit. Die Ket hat gleich der schnappt, als is nicht einer von sie. The sect, the group, now understood that he was not one of them. Okay. Moshe.
Okay. Man hat ihm ausgefragt und hat erzählt von Eretz Israel. They questioned him and he told them about Eretz Israel, von die Jeden was feinen dort, about the Jews who live there, von die Yeshivas, about the Yeshivas, Heilige Kforim, holy graves, Churvas, und wie so Emerson Makubalim, about the ruins and about the true mystics, nicht kein falscher, not false ones, proven der Nentern them case how the true mystics are trying to bring nearer the end of days, the coming of the Mashiach. Hat geredet von der Koisel Maravi, he spoke about the Wailing Wall, the wall west, der Marat Machpelah, the cave of Machpelah, I think Sarah's buried, Rachel's cave there, Rachel's grave. Jakob hat gewesen dem Eulam a paar Turkische Matbeas. Jacob showed showed the crowd a few Turkish coins. Emmett hat gefragt, wie so ist, Jakob durchgegangen, die Nessia auf dem Yam, und sie hat gesehen, die Wassermenschen. Someone asked him how he experienced the journey on the sea, and if he saw the water people, was einen Halbmensch, that are half human, half fish, und wo sie und was die Gesangen seien also ist, als man muss verstoppen die Ohren. That their songs are so sweet that you have to stop up your ears. Wenn nicht, geht man euch von Matikas. If not, you just go dissolve into bliss. Jakob hat geantwortet, als allein hat die Wassermenschen nicht gesehen. Jakob answered that he himself had not seen the water people und euch nicht gehört their Gesang, neither had he heard their songs. Sie ist schon lang gewesen Zeit zu daven Ma'ariv. It was already time to pray, to say Ma'ariv, the late evening prayer. Aber man hat noch als geredet und geschmust, but they were still continuing to talk and to chat. Noch Ma'ariv seien die Leute nicht, aber geheim essen Nachtmahl. After Ma'ariv, the people didn't go home to have supper, nor sie ist gestanden, nor me is gestanden arum Yaakov, but they continue to stand around Yaakov. Wenn man hat Yaakov gefragt, noch was ist gekommen, und hat gesagt, when they asked Yaakov why he came, and he said, aufzukleiben Sarahs Beiner und sie aufzubringen kein Eretz Israel, to collect Sarah's bones and bring them back to Eretz Israel, is a while geworden still. For a while it was quiet. Der Gabe von der Chevra Kadisha ist gewesen dabei und hat so getan. The Gabe of the Chevra Kadisha was there, and he said as follows, Gei such a noodle in a wagon hay, look for a needle in a haystack, in a wagon of hay, sees upon him, nicht bashert it is, it looks, it appears, it's not ordained. Oh, sees upon him, nicht bashert, what Yaakov sich allein geantwortet. Oh, it appears that it is not ordained. Yaakov answered himself. Die Leute haben sich bisslich weit von ihm abgekehrt. Die folk slowly went away from him. Man hat gehört, als they heard that man soll bringen, kein Israel, die Beine von a Tzaddik, an Ishma for some. They had heard that you could bring to Israel the bones of a righteous man, a famous person. Aber als ein Mann soll kommen noch 20 Jahre suchen die Beine von etwas an der Käfer, very feminist. But if a husband should come and after 20 years looking for the bones of a woman, a bit pejorative, was Mahotba Groben Kurat Khamor, who was buried outside the cemetery. Das ist gefährlich, this was a novelty. Teil haben genommen Murblen, einer zum anderen, als der Oreach muss sein zerrudert. Some started muttering one to the other that the visitor must be confused. Andere haben ihm Choshed gefallen, als is a Shabtai. Others were suspicious that he was a Shabtai Tzvi follower. Noch andere haben rausgedrungen, als kommt gar nicht von Eretz Israel. Others derived from this that he doesn't come at all from Eretz Israel, nor as Trachtweis, he's just making it up. Die Shabtai-Tzvinikas haben wieder geprüft, ihm reinnehmen in their Grenzel. The Shabtai-Tzvinikas again tried to bring him into their circle, aber hat gerät vor seinen Seder wieder, but he spoke in a way that was against them. It's opposed to them. Noch a while hat man ihm übergelost in Beis Midrash. After a time, they just left him in the synagogue. Hat gesagt, him, he said Psalms and gelernt Ashir, and he learned a lesson from the Talmud, I assume, by der Schein von einer Jortzeitlicht, by the light of a Jortzeit candle. Die Jiden was hat mit 20 Jahren zurück genommen zu sich Jacobs Eifela, the old lady who 20 years ago took Jacob's little baby to herself, is gekommen und ihm gebracht, Kasha mit Joach, came to him in porridge and soup. Aber Jacob hat ihr gesagt, als esst nicht kein Fisch, but Jacob told her that he did not eat fish, kein Fleisch, nor meat, und kein Schummeichel, was kommt von a lebendige Beschäftignis, and no food that comes from a living creature, a viele nicht kein Käse oder an Ei, not even cheese or eggs. Die jeder noch hat a Fregeton. The old lady asked, was esst ihr, mein lieber Mensch? What do you eat, my dear man? A brennende Keulen, burning coals, Broitmeat, Eilberten, bread and olives. Bei uns einen ist doch kein Eilberten. Over here there are no olives. Broitmeat, Resha, bread and radish. Broitmeat Hatzibala, bread with an onion, Broitmeat, Knobel, bread with
isn't it garlic?
Garlic. Garlic. Davon hat man nicht kein Koch. You don't have any nourishment from this. God gibt Koch. God gives strength. Nu esst das Brot. Nu eat the bread. Jakob hat sich gewaschen beim Tun. Jakob washed himself at the barrel. When he's weggesetzt essen, das trockene Brot and sat down to eat the dry bread. A paar Bochim was lernen als Murot und bleiben in Beis Midrash bis spät, ungeheben treiben Spaß auf dem Fremden. A few young lads who were studying at night and remained in the study house until late started to tease the stranger. Was hat ihr Meure für Fleisch? Why are you frightened of meat? Wir seien allein euch Fleisch, we're also meat. Was tut ihr Shabbos? What do you do on Shabbos? Das was in der Woche. I do the same as I do during the week. Man tut doch Shabbos sich nicht peinigen. You are not supposed to torture yourself in Shabbos. Man tut euch nicht peinigen andere. And his response was, you also should not torture others. Was tut men bei euch rein in Cholent? Okay. What do I put into your Cholent, which is the Saturday heated up meal? Boimel, we put oil in. Ob alle wollten sich geführt wie ihr, if everyone behaved like you, when was Volk gelebt, der Scheucher, how would the slaughterer have made a living? Ein Bocher had geproved by wijzen Jacob as brecht them den. One young lad tried to show that Jacob that he was breaking the law. Where are we time-wise? Let's see. There's no time. Andere haben sich gekneipt, gekichert, geschüchtert. Others started pinching themselves, giggling and whispering. Jakob hat voll gesehen, als man treibt aus im Leizones. Jakob saw that they were mocking him. Aber hat opgeantwortet jeden Ernst, aber hat opgeantwortet jeden ernst und klar, but he answered everyone seriously and clearly. Hat gehad seine eigene Drachim. He had his own ways. Hat ausgeteilt die Torah auf sein eigenem Steiger. He interpreted the Torah in his own way. Is schon gewohnt, man soll ihm reuten. He was already used to being persecuted, euch im Späten, being mocked, im Heuchtsein, people being suspicious of him. Is bald Kleinerheit gewesen an euch gelenkter. Already when he was young, he was twisted out of joint. He didn't go with the mob when is geblieben ausgelenkt after Elter, and he remained twisted away from the group. A lenk is a joint, like a lenk, so twisted out of joint when he got older. Kurzer Zeit, was hat sich behaupten zu die Shabtai aside from the short time when he had joined with the Shabtai Tzvinikas, is allemal geblieben, nicht dahin, nicht daher. He was always neither here nor there. He went his own way. Viele zwischen die Shabtai Tzvinikas is gewesen, I would say, Teufen. Even among the Shabtai Tzvinikas, he was an unusual guy, a rare find. Viele der eigenen Sohn, even his own son, Benjamin Eliezer, hat ihm vorgeworfen, seine österliche gang had thrown at him his unusual behavior. Man hat ihm in Eretz Israel gewollt zuteilen, das Aushaltnis von der Chalukah. In Eretz Israel, they wanted to provide him the support from the charity that was given out to the people in Eretz Israel. Aber hat nicht gewollt genießen von Stoka, but he didn't want to enjoy charity. Getan allerlei schwere Arbeiten. He did all sorts of heavy labor. Gegroben Gräber, he dug pits, gereinigt, Obtritten, he cleaned outhouses, getrogen Massaus, I'm not sure how, but he carried weights, was gewenig tutos, an ezel that usually only an ass carries it. Hat him alle Joren gerecht shiluchim. They tried to marry him off for a long time, aber is geblieben allein, but he remained alone. Hat him gewollt geben a ständige Arbeit. They wanted to give him steady work. Soll haben sein Parnasse. He should earn his living, aber hat nicht gekonnt einsitzen auf keinen Ort, but he couldn't remain in one place. Da ist gewesen in Svatjer. now he was in Tzfat und da in Shem and then in Shem. Doch hat verbracht in Jaffo. Now he spent time in Jaffo und da hat sich gelost wandern über der Midbar auf dem Weg zum Yam HaMelech. And here he wandered over the desert on the way to the Dead Sea, the Salt Sea. When is geworden schläfrig, when he became tired, oder sich weggelegt unter a Bäum, he lay down under a tree, oder untergespart a steen zu Koppens, or put a rock under his head. Not a viele verspreid in Eretz Israel a Bilbo, als der Jakob is nicht kein Yid. They even spread a libel in Eretz Israel that Yaakov is no Jew, nor a Geir, but a convert. Jorden seinen a Rieber und jene, was haben ihm gekonnt, haben nicht gewusst, dass is a London, ihm gehalten voran am Haaretz. Years went by, and those who knew him did not know that he was a teacher, and they held him for an ignoramus. Is geblieben der Eigener in Zamoshi remain. Is geblieben der Eigener in Zamosh, in Josephus, in dem Dorf, in die Berg, in Pilitz, in Jerusalem. He remained the same in Zamosh, in Josephus, in the village in the hills, in Pilitz, and in Jerusalem. Ihm allein hat sich ausgewiesen, als seine Gedanken seinen gleich. He thought that his thoughts were okay, aber alle haben gesagt, als seinen krumm. But all the others said that they were not quite right, crooked. Machmas die Teure, allein heißt man soll neugen nach dem Rob, und man soll sich vielen Leute, die Ältere von Leute wie die Ältere von dort weisen on. Because the Torah itself says that you should bow according to the multitude, and you should behave according to how the oldest of the generation indicate one should behave. What Jakob allein verschuldigt in Eingespartkeit, and he blamed himself in his obstinacy, aber hat fort nicht gekonnt sein, anders wie is, but he nevertheless could not be other than he was. Die Joren by Jan Bzik in Stall, the years in the stable with Jan Bzik, offenbar on the hill, rumgeringelt mit Chayas und wilde Schkotzim und Schickses, surrounded by animals and wild Gentile boys and girls, haben sich nicht gelost opwischen. He couldn't wipe off his past. Die 4 Jahre, was hat gelebt mit der Stummer Sarah, the 4 years that he'd lived with the mute Sarah, haben gelegt auf ihm, as Temple had stamped him for what he was. Hat gehabt als Geduld zu die Schwachen. He had a lot of patience for the weak ones, aber hat sich gegengestellt Takifim, but he always opposed the high ones, the stronger ones. Hat als geschwiegen. He was very silent. Telmol hat jenem gesagt, dem Emmes in die Augen, but occasionally he told others the truth. He told it to their face, in their eyes. I think that's enough for me.
Wow, quite a person, yeah?
Yeah, I'm my own man. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, look at his history. Look at his history. Look at what happened to him, what he passed through. I mean, in that sense, the story is is very, very rich. I mean, that part of it, yeah.
Mhm.
Ah,
Ja, okay. Hat sich gekonnt gegenstellen bewaffneten RV oder a Turk. He could resist or oppose an armed Arab or a Turk. Is capabel gewesen, sich losen auf einen langen Weg auszugeben, jenem a halben Prutter. He was capable of going on a long journey to return to another person a half a prutter, half a penny. Hat genommen auf sich nayert schwere mitzvahs. He took upon himself only difficult commandments. Zu trugen, gelenkte, zu waschen, Kritiker. He took he carried lime to wash Kritiker, to wash leprous people. Mansleit haben geweicht von ihm. Men avoided him. Aber frumme Irenes, Gabaites, haben ihm gehalten für a Tzadik, a Lamed Vovnik. But pious women, the wives of officials in the synagogue, considered him a righteous man, one of the 36 righteous people in the world. There's this legend that there are 36 righteous people in the world. Nobody knows who they are, and perhaps Mashiach would be one of them. Wenn Jakob ist jetzt gesessen in Beschmedres und gelernt, hat in Gedank sich allein vorgehalten, als hat nicht gedacht, kommen nachher. When Yaakov was sitting in the study house and he was studying, the thought came to him, and he reproached himself for that he should never have come here. Hat nicht getort aufrudern das lang vergessene. He should never have stirred up that which was long forgotten. Wie wohl hat Jahren gespart Geld auf der dosike Nessia, even though he had saved money for this very journey for many years, hat nicht gehabt genug auf der Hazor zurück. He didn't have enough money for the return journey. Zu Menschen und seine hat sich allein gehabt, reingetrieben in a Matzev, als wird müssen ankommen zu Menschen und seine Gobben. He came to a situation, he was driven to a situation where he would have to turn to people for their gifts for their donations. Jakob hat euch sich gefolgt. Soll chas v'sholem nicht werden krank. Yaakov also dreaded that he shouldn't, heaven forbid, get sick in Chutzlaretz, outside of Israel, or der Gor of their Schiff, or even on a ship, wo me warf der Rhein die Mesim in Yam, where they threw dead people into the sea. Nicht anders, nor bin Meshuga, hat Yaakov zu sich gerät. I must be mad, he said to himself. Wie fleckt sagen die Mama Aleha Shalom? How did my mother, peace be on her, what would she have said? Es fällt mir a Klippe in Moyer. I have a screw loose in my mind. You have a screw loose, and I have a screw loose in my mind. That's what the mother would have said. Noch ein Schier hat sich gelost gehen in Hektisch. After the studying, he left to go to the poorhouse. Die Bocherim haben ihm gesagt, als kon schlafen im Beschmedres. The young students told him that he could sleep in the study house. Aber hat das gehalten für Achille Kodesh. But he considered this to be a desecration of that which is holy. Hat sich gemacht a Klal, als das Schwere ist allemal besser wie das Geringe. He had a rule that which is more difficult is always better than to take the easy way. Hat oft allein gesteunt, wie hat allemal a Ruf gelegt auf sich Lasten und Jochen, azoi auf der Neshoma und azoi auf den Guf. So he always even astonished himself that he always placed upon himself the heavy weight and Jochen and yokes, so upon his soul and also upon his body. Yaakov hat getan a Stuppe die Tier, und is rein. Yaakov pushed the door open and he went inside. In Hektisch is gewinn finster. In the poorhouse, it was dark in the poorhouse. Es hat sich der Herd a sifzen, a krächzen, a schnorchen. So one could hear a sigh, a groan, a snore, übergeweckte Schorchenischen, sleep disrupting snoring. A man's bildish call hat a fregeton. A man's voice asked, "Where is dort, huh? Who's there?" An Eurach von der Fremd. It's a visitor from afar. Was kommt hier etwas inmitten der Nacht? Why have you arrived here in the middle of the night? Es ist noch nicht inmitten der Nacht. It's not yet in the middle of the night. Das Licht ist schön ausgelöschen. The candles have already been put out. Met zich begeven ohne Licht, so we can manage without a candle. So es do ergens voran a bintel streu. Somewhere there's a pile of straw. Okay, shall I carry on? Okay. Wart, ich will es gefunden. Wait, I'll find it. Seid euch nicht matriach. Don't bother. This is Yaakov says, don't bother. Mich, as me weckt über, kann ich schon nicht zutun kein Eug. If I'm woken up, I can't close an eye afterwards. Also wie Jakob ist da gestanden, hat der Blick seiner sich genommen zugewonnen. As he was standing there, his eyes, his glance became used to the darkness. Hat der Sinn Gestalten liegen auf Gelegers, auf der Erde und auf breiter Bank. He noticed figures lying on beds and on the ground and on broad benches. Mannsleid und Weiber haben sich gefunden in ein Stub. Men and women found themselves in the same room. Wenn Jakob is rein, hat ihm das Gestank verhabt bei der Nose. When Jakob entered the Hektish, the smell hit him in the nose. Aber bald hat zu die Reiches sich euch zugewohnt. But soon he became used also to these odors. Die Levona hat nicht gescheint. The moon was not shining. Aber der Himmel in Dreußen is given full mit Sternen, but the heavens outside were full of stars. Wiewohl sie Sommer seinen die Fenster do gewinn vermacht. Even though it was summer, the windows here were closed, wie in winter, as they would have been in the winter. Als is Jakoben gewinn bekannt. Everything was familiar to Yaakov. Die Gerufen, die Krächzenischen, die ochzenischen seinen Umetum, die eigene. The smells, the groans, the moans, the groans were the same all over. In Eretz Yisrael, in Chutz La'aretz, both in Eretz Yisrael and in outside of it. In jedem Stadt, wo Jakob hat sich gefunden, is weg in Hektish. In every city where Jacob found himself, he went to find the poorhouse. Helfen die Alte und Schlaffe, and helped the old people and the ill people. Hat gereinigt jene, was sehr verkrochen mit Umfleit, geschmiert, Schlaffe.
Wo seinen verkrochen.
Hat gereinigt jene, was seinen verkrochen. He cleaned those who were infested mit Umfleet, with vermin. Geschmiert Schlaffe mit turpentine, and he wiped over sick people with turpentine. Gebracht frisch Streu, and he brought fresh straw. Badient die Ungeholfene, and he assisted those who were helpless. Hat die dosige Mitzvah keinmal nicht durchgelost. He never passed by this commandment. It's hat Emmets anders im bedient, and now somebody else was serving him. Jener hat reingebracht von ergens a Bund Streu. So the other person had brought in from somewhere a bundle of straw and ausgespreid and spread it out of a deal and spread it out on the floor. Yaakov had noch gehad gelernt Krishma in Dreusen. So he had already recited the Shema outside, nicht zu dürfen sagen kein idische Wörter zwischen Unreinigkeit, so that he didn't need to have to say Jewish words, holy words among in a place that was unclean. Auf ein Geleger hat bloß gesagt Hamapil, hart fahren einschlafen. On the bed, he only said this prayer Hamapil just before he fell asleep. Hat sich weggelegt und bedächtig ausgezogen die Füße. He lay down and he carefully stretched out his feet, sich nicht on Emerson anzustoßen, so that he wouldn't bump into anybody. A Jidene hat so getan, and a woman said, schleppen sich ganze Nacht und kommen aufwecken kranke Menschen. You wander around the whole night, and then you come and you wake up sick people. Abgenommen sollen sie werden die Fies. Your feet should your feet should take revenge on I think on you. Schilt nicht, Idena. Schilt nicht. So don't curse, woman, don't curse. Ihr noch genug schlafen. You've still got plenty time to sleep. Seiden in Kaver, only in the grave. Wer seid ihr? Who are you? Von wann kommt ihr? And where do you come from? Hat gefragt derjenige, was hat gebracht Jakob das Streu. So the person who brought Jacob the straw asked him, who are you and where do you come from? Is gelegen auf a Bankbettel neben Jakob. He was lying on a a bench bed next to Yankov. Ich come from Eretz Israel. I come from Eretz Israel. Das sind die Reb Yankov? Are you Reb Yankov? Hat jener gefragt, a Fachidester? That person asked in surprise. Ja, das bin ich. Yes, that is I. Wie kommt es, was keiner hat euch nicht genommen heim für ein Eurech? How is it that no one has taken you home as a visitor? Man hat da gehört von euch. People have heard about you over here. Steitch, ihr sind doch a Higer. So that it means actually you are a local. Ihr konnt mich nicht, aber ich kann euch. You don't know me, but I know you. Gedenk, wie heint, wie ihr sind gekommen nachher und geworden am Melamed. I remember like today when you came here and you became a Melamed. Mein eigen Kind hat gelernt bei euch Aleph Beis. My own child studied the Aleph Beis with you. Es ist nicht Yankov, hat jeden sich angerufen. It isn't Yankov, a woman called out. Ich, Leibisch Meir. Sorry, wie heißt ihr, Reb Yid? What's your name, Reb Yid? Hat Yaakov gefragt. Yaakov asked him. Ich, Leibisch Meir. My name is Leibisch Meir. Reb Leibisch Meir, a Yid darf sein lekaf schus. Reb Leibisch Meir, a Jew should judge favorably, nicht lekaf choiv, and not unfavorably. Von wannen weißt ihr, als man hat mich nicht gewollt nehmen auf Nachtlägers? How do you know that they didn't want to take me for to a place to sleep? Der Emes is, as etliche Balabatim haben mich gewollt nehmen heim. The truth is that several householders wanted to take me home. Aber ich fühle sich, als gehe nicht zu kein Menschen, but I have the custom that I don't go to people's houses. Was ist schlecht Hegdisch? What's bad about the poorhouse? Meine Söhne sollen liegen in Hegdisch. Hat so getan, die Idene, was hat früher gescholten Jankoven. May my enemies lie in the poorhouse, said the woman who had previously cursed him, said to Yaakov. Mestome weiß der Mensch, was tut. Perhaps this person knows what he's doing. Hat Leibisch Meir ihm verantwortet. Leibisch Meir answered him. Zij alle seien nicht Kahiga. They, all of these people here, are not locals. Gekommen ken Pilitz, der Ruach weist von wannen. They came to Pilitz, heaven knows from where.
Sorry, can you just Marsha, can you move it up? Because, if a little bit more, thanks, because one couldn't see it on the screen. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. Perhaps we can go down a little further. Okay. Aber ich bin da von ersten Tag on. But I've been here from the very first day. Wenn ich bin gekommen Kempilitz, bald noch die Schrittes, seien da nicht gewesen mehr wie 3 Häuser. When I came to Pilitz after the slaughter, there were not more than 3 houses in Pilitz. Gershon Olav Haschnobel hat schon gehabt die Arenda. Gershon, the one with the big snout, he had the lease from the pirates. Aber es ist noch da viele nicht gewesen kein Minion. But at that time there wasn't even a minion yet. Zwei ist mir umgekommen zusammen mit 2 Kindern. My wife was killed together with two children. Und ich bin geblieben mit ein Engel Menashe. And I remained with one little boy whose name was Menashe. Lebt schon euch nicht. He's no longer alive either. Aber das ist geschehen mit Jahren später. But this happened years later. Ich bin gewesen a Stollier und keine Arbeit hat mir nicht gefällt. I was a carpenter and I didn't lack for work. Wir haben gehabt a Dratkiel Melamed. They had a Melamed to teach little children. Aber eider ihr sind gekommen, is weg von Stadt. But before you arrived, he had left the town. Man hat gewollt bringen a Melamed von jener Seite Weissel. They wanted to bring a teacher from the other side of the Vistula. Derweil sind ihr gekommen, and in the meantime you arrived. Es ducht sich mir, es ist gewinn Nächten. It seems to me that it was yesterday. Was wissen sie, die Fremde? What do they know, these strangers? Mein Engel hat gelernt bei euch. My little boy studied under you. In der paar Chadoshim, was ihr sind gewinn melamed, hat gehat apula. In the few months that you were the teacher, he had made progress. Von halb traf is arriba gleich auf Ivra. From half syllables, he moved over straight away to Ivra, to Hebrew. Nu und noch sind ihr geworden der Arrendar und all das Iberika. And then afterwards, you became the leaseholder and all the rest. Man hat geredet von euch. People spoke about you. Man hat geredet von euch. They spoke about you. Erst annummelt hab ich seit erzählt die ganze Meise. Only recently I told them the whole story. Was sind ihr etwas gekommen nachher, als von Eretz Israel? So why did you come here from so far as Eretz Israel? Yaakov had Avegev opgewart a while. Jacob waited for a moment. Of my wife's caver, I came to my wife's grave.